The morning sky above New York blazed with unusual colors. What started as a normal Tuesday changed forever when massive ships appeared in Earth's atmosphere. They hung there, silent and still, like metal mountains floating in the air. Their hulls gleamed with a soft blue light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the world's collective heartbeat. Mark Anderson stood among the crowd gathering in Times Square, his phone held up like thousands of others, recording the moment that would change human history. As chief of the United Nations Security Council, he knew this day would bring either humanity's greatest triumph or its worst nightmare. The first message came through every device on Earth at exactly 12:00 p.m. UTC. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Council, and they had been watching humanity for centuries. Their message was simple: we come to judge. Within hours, the Council requested a meeting with Earth's leaders. They chose the UN General Assembly as their meeting ground. Mark sat in the front row, watching as tall, slender beings with iridescent skin walked through the grand doors. Their movements were smooth, almost floating, and their eyes held a depth that spoke of ancient wisdom. The lead council member, who called himself the first speaker, stood at the podium. His voice carried through the hall without need for microphones. "We have observed your species for 327 of your years," he said. "What we have seen troubles us greatly." On the massive screens behind him, images began to play. Wars throughout human history, nuclear tests, violent sports, action movies, military training. Each image carefully selected to show humanity's capacity for violence. "Your species," the first speaker continued, "carries a dangerous trait. You are warriors. In all our observations of the galaxy, we have rarely encountered a species that shows such natural inclination toward combat and conflict." Mark stood up, his voice strong despite his racing heart. "We are more than our capacity for violence. Look at our art, our music, our achievements in science and medicine." The first speaker raised a hand, and new images appeared: children playing, doctors saving lives, scientists making discoveries. "We acknowledge your achievements," he said, "but they do not outweigh the risk. Your history shows that even in times of peace, you prepare for war. Even your entertainment glorifies combat. Your sports celebrate controlled violence. Your children play at warfare." Other council members moved forward, their expressions unreadable. One of them spoke, her voice like chiming bells. "We have seen species like yours before. They inevitably bring destruction to the galaxy. We cannot allow this." The judgment took less than an hour. The council voted unanimously. Earth would be quarantined, surrounded by an energy barrier that would prevent any space travel. Humanity would be exiled within its own solar system. "This is not a punishment," the first speaker said, though his words felt hollow. "It is protection. For the galaxy from you, and for you from yourselves." When the barrier went up, it looked like a transparent curtain of shifting aurora lights wrapping around Earth's orbit. Ships couldn't pass through it. Signals couldn't penetrate it. Humanity was trapped. Mark stood at his office window that evening, watching the barrier shimmer in the darkening sky. A report sat on his desk. The barrier extended just far enough to allow travel to Mars and the moon colonies, but no further. On his computer, messages poured in from scientific institutions worldwide, all saying the same thing: the barrier used technology far beyond human understanding. As night fell over New York, the barrier cast a gentle glow across the city. It looked beautiful, but Mark could only see prison bars. In the streets below, people gathered in quiet groups, their faces turned upward. Some were angry, others afraid, but most simply seemed lost. The Day of Judgment, as it would later be called, marked the beginning of humanity's greatest challenge. They were now trapped within their own solar system, labeled too dangerous to join the galactic community. But the Council had made one crucial mistake. They had just proven to humanity that there was something out there worth reaching. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, It was overcoming impossible odds. Dr. Robert Adams stared at his computer screen in the underground lab beneath the Rocky Mountains. His eyes burned from lack of sleep, but he couldn't stop now. 3 months after the barrier went up, he had found something interesting, a pattern in the energy field's pulses. "Look at this," he called to his team. Mary Wilson, their military expert, moved away from her workbench, where she'd been examining barrier readings. Paul Cooper, their head engineer, rolled his chair across the lab floor to join them. "The barrier weakens for 2.3 seconds every time there's a solar flare," Robert explained, pointing to the data. "It's not enough for anyone to notice normally, but if we time it right." Mary leaned closer to the screen. "How much does it weaken?" "Enough for a small ship to slip through, if it's built right." The next few weeks became a blur of secret meetings and careful planning. They couldn't tell anyone outside their small team. The council had left observers on Earth who watched for any attempts to break the quarantine. In an abandoned mining facility, they built their ship. They called it Phoenix, a fitting name for humanity's hope of rising from its constraints. It wasn't very big, just enough for a crew of 5. But it was fast, and more importantly, it could slip through the smallest crack in the barrier. The team grew to include 2 more members, Lisa Chen, an expert in alien technology, and David White, their best pilot. They worked through days and nights, knowing they would only get one chance at this. "The next major solar flare is in 3 days, Robert announced during their final meeting. "The council's observers will be busy monitoring their equipment when it hits. That's our window." Mary checked their weapons one last time. Not that they had many. The council had banned most military equipment, but they had managed to hide a few small arms. "If we're caught, there's no coming back," she reminded everyone. "We're already trapped," David said, his hands moving over the ship's controls in a final check. "I'd rather die trying to free humanity than live in this beautiful cage." The day of the escape came with clear skies, perfect for their plan. The Phoenix sat ready in its underground hangar, its hull gleaming with the special coating they'd developed to help mask its energy signature. As the solar flare approached, they took their positions. Robert at the science station, Mary at tactical, Paul monitoring the engines, Lisa watching the barrier readings, and David at the controls. "Solar flare in 5 minutes," Lisa announced. The whole ship hummed with tension. They launched under cover of the flare's electromagnetic interference. The Phoenix shot upward, accelerating faster than any public spacecraft was allowed to. They had exactly 147 seconds to reach the barrier's weak point. "Council ships detected," Mary called out. 3 of them, moving to intercept. David's hands flew over the controls. The Phoenix responded like it was part of him, diving and weaving through the patrol routes they'd memorized. "Barrier in sight," Paul reported. 90 seconds to solar flare peak. The council ships were closing in. A warning message boomed through their communications. "Return to Earth immediately or face destruction." 30 seconds. Lisa's voice was tight with tension. The first energy blast from a council ship missed them by meters. The Phoenix shuddered but held together. "Now," Robert shouted as his instruments showed the barrier weakening. David aimed the Phoenix at the barely visible distortion in the barrier. For a moment, everything seemed to stop. The ship shuddered violently as it hit the barrier. Warning lights flashed across every console. Then, suddenly, they were through. The barrier shimmered behind them like a distant curtain. Ahead lay open space and freedom. But they had no time to celebrate. "Multiple ships launching from the moon base," Mary reported. "They're not going to let us go easily." Robert looked at the vast space ahead of them. They had done it. They had broken humanity's prison. But now came the hard part. Surviving in a galaxy that had labeled them too dangerous to exist freely. "Plot a course to the outer solar system," he ordered. "We need to be out of sensor range before they can track us." The real journey was just beginning. 3 weeks after their escape, the Phoenix drifted quietly behind an asteroid in the Kuiper Belt. Inside, Robert and his team were reviewing data they'd stolen from a small council monitoring station near Pluto's orbit. "This can't be right," Lisa said, her eyes wide as she stared at the holographic display. "According to these files, Earth isn't the only world they've locked away." The team gathered around her station. The stolen data showed a map of the galaxy, with dozens of worlds marked in red. Each had the same label: Containment Zone. "Look at the dates," Mary pointed out. "They've been doing this for thousands of years. Whenever they find a species that doesn't fit their definition of peaceful, they just lock them away." Robert zoomed in on one of the marked planets. "The Runners," he read from the file. "Quarantined 300 years ago for excessive exploration tendencies and inability to accept territorial limitations." He moved to another. "The Builders, locked away for dangerous technological advancement rates." "They're not protecting the galaxy," Paul said quietly. "They're controlling it." David, who had been studying the ship's long-range scans, suddenly called out, "We've got company. Council patrol ship coming around the asteroid field." The team rushed to their stations, but before they could power up the engines, Mary noticed something strange. "Wait," she said, "look at their flight pattern. They're not searching. They're running." Through the Phoenix's view screen, they watched as the Council ship darted between asteroids, its engines glowing bright with emergency power. Moments later, they saw why. A massive dark shape emerged from behind a distant asteroid, moving with frightening speed for its size. "What is that?" Lisa whispered. The dark ship caught up to the Council patrol vessel in seconds. There was a flash of purple energy, and the Council ship simply disappeared, leaving not even debris behind. The team watched in horror as the attacker turned and moved away, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. "Check the stolen data," Robert ordered. "There has to be something about this." Lisa dug deeper into the files and soon found a heavily encrypted folder labeled Primary Containment Directive. It took her an hour to break in, but what they found changed everything. "The Council isn't just afraid of warrior species," she explained as she read. "They're hiding from something that almost destroyed them long ago." She pulled up an ancient star chart. "Look at this. Thousands of years ago, half the galaxy just goes dark. Hundreds of star systems, just empty." Paul studied the technical data. "These readings, whatever that ship was using, it's like nothing in the Council's current technology. It's way more advanced." "There's more," Lisa continued. "The Council didn't develop their containment barriers to prison warrior species. They developed them to hide from these things. They're called—" She struggled with the alien word. Closest translation would be the Devourers. "But why contain warrior species then?" Mary asked. Robert's face went pale as he made the connection. "Because warrior species would fight back. We'd expose them. The Council isn't maintaining peace. They're hiding. And they're forcing everyone else to hide with them. That's why they're so afraid of humans," David added. "We wouldn't just accept the threat. We'd want to fight it." A sudden alert from their long-range sensors interrupted them. More Council ships were entering the Kuiper Belt, searching in a grid pattern. "We can't stay here," Robert decided. "And we can't go back to Earth. Not yet. Not until we understand what's really happening." "The map shows 3 other contained species within 50 light-years," Lisa said. "The closest are the Runners." "Then that's where we go," Robert said firmly. "The Council isn't just wrong about humanity. They're endangering the entire galaxy with their fear. And we're going to prove it." As David plotted their course to the Runners' world, the team felt the weight of their discovery. They hadn't just found a way out of humanity's prison. They'd stumbled onto a secret that could change the fate of the galaxy. The Phoenix slipped away from the Kuiper Belt, carrying with it not just 5 humans, but the truth that could shatter the Council's carefully maintained illusion of peace. The Phoenix emerged from faster-than-light travel near the edge of runner space. The ship's systems showed signs of the long journey. Making their own FTL drive had been difficult with limited resources. "Look at their barrier," Paul said, pointing at the screens. The energy field around the runner's solar system looked different from Earth's. It was flickering. Their containment is failing, Lisa observed, checking the readings. The Council isn't maintaining it properly. Through the view screen, they watched as another dark ship, like the one they'd seen in the Kuiper Belt, passed straight through the weakened barrier. Inside the runner system, lights flickered on several space stations as their power was drained. "We have to help them," David said, his hand already moving to the controls. Robert held up his hand. "Wait. Look." From behind one of the system's outer planets, ships emerged. They were sleek, fast, and moved in perfect formation. The runners weren't helpless after all. Their ships engaged the dark vessel, moving too quickly for the eye to follow. "They're incredible," Mary whispered, watching the battle. The Council contained them for being too eager to explore, but they never stopped preparing. The runner ships eventually drove off the attacker, but the cost was clear. 2 of their vessels had been destroyed, and a third drifted damage. "They're broadcasting a signal," Lisa announced. It's in English. They're using every major Earth language." "Put it through," Robert ordered. A voice filled the Phoenix's bridge. "To the human vessel. We know who you are. You're not as stealthy as you think. We've been watching you since you entered our system. If you're running from the Council, we offer sanctuary. If you're working for them, be warned. We will defend ourselves." Robert looked at his crew. They nodded. "This is the Phoenix," he responded. "We're refugees from Earth. And we bring warning. The Devourers are returning." The runner ships escorted them to a hidden station inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Inside, they met the runners. Tall, athletic beings with silver skin who never seemed to stop moving. The runner leader, who called himself Swift, showed them their command center. "We've been tracking the Devourer scouts for months," he explained. "The Council's barriers are failing across the galaxy. They don't have the resources to maintain them all." "Why don't they fight back?" Mary asked. "Their technology is advanced enough." Swift made a motion that might have been a laugh. "The Council forgot how to fight long ago. They chose hiding over strength, peace over preparedness. But we remembered. All the contained species remembered." He showed them more data. The Devourers weren't just sending scouts. They were massing at the edge of known space. Hundreds of the dark ships, gathering for something big. "The Council's peace was a lie," Swift continued. "They sacrificed progress for safety, strength for silence. But you can't hide forever. The Devourers always return." "How many other species have you contacted?" Robert asked. "The Builders have their own way out of their barrier. The Ridge Warriors broke free decades ago. We're not alone, but we're scattered. Disorganized." Swift turned to them. "That's why your arrival is so important. Humans have something special. You unite people. You turn enemies into allies. We've studied your history." Suddenly, alarms blared. A runner technician rushed in. "Multiple Devourer ships detected. They're attacking a Council core world." On the main screen, they watched as 5 massive dark ships tore through the Council's defensive fleet like it was made of paper. The Council's weapons barely scratched the Devourer ships' hulls. "The Council's peace made them weak," Swift said grimly. "They forgot that strength must be maintained." "Then we remind them," Robert decided. "Not just the Council, but everyone. We need to unite all the contained species, build an alliance." "It won't be easy," Mary warned. "Some will want revenge on the Council instead of helping them." "We don't have a choice," Robert replied. "The Devourers aren't just targeting the Council, they're coming for everyone. And we're the only ones ready to fight back." 1 month after meeting the runners, the Phoenix led a small fleet of ships through the darkness between stars. Behind them flew vessels from 3 different exiled species. The runners provided speed, the Builders brought their advanced technology, and the Ridge Warriors added pure combat power. Robert stood on the Phoenix's bridge, looking at the tactical display. "Report from Earth coming in," Lisa announced. The barrier is weakening there too. The Council is losing control. They're losing control everywhere, Mary added. Look at these readings. Devourer attacks have doubled in the last week. The Council's peaceful worlds are falling one by one. Through the main viewport, Robert watched their allied ships moving in formation. The Builders' crystal ships glowed with internal light, while the Ridge Warriors' heavy battleships looked like floating mountains of metal. The Runners' swift vessels darted between them all, keeping the formation tight. Another distress signal, Paul called out. Small mining colony under attack. 3 Devourer ships. Robert looked at the crew. They'd been training together, learning each other's strengths. Time to test our new tactics, he said. Signal the fleet. The Allied fleet dropped out of FTL near the colony. The Devourer ships were huge black shapes against the stars, their hulls absorbing all light. Battle Plan Alpha, Robert ordered, just like we practiced. The fleet moved as one. Runner ships zipped forward, too fast for the Devourer's energy weapons to track. They distracted the massive ships while builder vessels hung back, their crystal hulls channeling energy into precise cutting beams. The Ridge Warriors' battleships moved in next, their heavy weapons pounding the Devourer's weakened shields. The Phoenix coordinated it all, using human tactical experience to make the different fighting styles work together. For the first time, they saw a Devourer ship destroyed by their combined attack. The dark hull cracked, spilling purple energy into space. The other 2 Devourer ships retreated, something no one had seen them do before. The colony is safe, Lisa reported. And we just proved something important. They can be beaten. The news spread quickly. Other contained species began reaching out. The Shade Dancers, masters of stealth. The High Guard, with their energy weapons. Even the Deep Miners, who had been hiding underground for centuries. 2 weeks later, they gathered for the first Alliance Council. Representatives from 12 formerly contained species met on the Runner's hidden station. Robert spoke to them all. The Council feared us because we were different, he said. They called us violent, dangerous, unstable. But look around this room. Each of us has different strengths, different ways of fighting. Together, we're stronger than the Council ever was. Swift stepped forward. The Devourers are massing for a major attack. Our scouts report they're targeting the Council's capital world. Over 1,000 ships. Let them fall, a Ridge Warrior growled. They imprisoned us all. If the Council falls, we all fall, Robert argued. Their worlds don't know how to fight. Billions of innocent people would die. We have to help them. Debate raged for hours. Finally, Mary stood up. The Council was wrong about us, she said. They thought being peaceful meant being helpless. They thought being different meant being dangerous. Let's prove them wrong about both. Let's save them. One by one, the species voted. The Alliance would defend the Council, whether they wanted help or not. We have one advantage, Robert told them as they prepared to leave. The Devourers think like the Council. They expect surrender. They expect fear. They don't expect people to stand and fight. And that's what we do best, Swift added with a runner's version of a smile. As the Alliance fleet gathered, Robert watched from the Phoenix's bridge. Hundreds of ships, each different, each powerful in its own way. The Council had tried to contain them all, but in doing so, they had created exactly what the galaxy needed, warriors who remembered how to fight. The real battle was about to begin. The Council capital world was beautiful, a planet of crystal cities and golden towers reaching into the clouds. But today, those towers cast long shadows as over 1,000 Devourer ships darkened the sky above. Robert watched from the Phoenix's bridge as the Council's defense fleet tried to fight back. Their ships were elegant but ineffective, their weapons barely scratching the Devourer's dark hulls. Council transmission coming in, Lisa reported. They're asking for our help. On the main screen, the first speaker appeared. He looked older, tired. To the Human Alliance, he said, his voice lacking its former confidence. We were wrong. Please, Help us." Robert looked at his crew, then at the tactical display showing their fleet hiding behind the system's outer planets. 500 ships from 12 different species, all former exiles, all ready to fight. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Battle Plan Delta. And send word to Earth. Tell them to get ready." The Alliance fleet emerged from hiding, approaching in attack formation. Runner scouts led the way, followed by builder support ships. Ridge Warrior battleships formed the core, with specialized ships from other species filling tactical roles humans had helped design. "The Devourers are turning to face us," Mary reported. "They're ignoring the Council ships now. We've got their attention." The battle began with a flash of light as builder ships fired their crystal energy weapons. Runner vessels darted between the massive Devourer ships, planting explosive devices at weak points the deep miners had discovered. "They're responding," Paul called out. "Devourer energy weapons charging." The dark ships fired, but the High Guard vessels were ready. Their energy shields, combined with builder technology, held against the purple beams. Behind this protection, Ridge Warrior ships moved in close, their heavy weapons pounding the Devourers' hulls. "It's working," Lisa said excitedly. "Their formation is breaking up." But the Devourers weren't finished. A massive ship, twice the size of the others, emerged from their fleet. It fired a beam that cut straight through 3 Alliance ships. "New tactic," Robert commanded. "All ships, form up on the Phoenix. Mary, send the signal." Mary pressed a series of controls. Across the Alliance fleet, new weapons powered up, a combination of all their technologies, designed by humans and built by the builders. "Remember," Robert said to the fleet, "hit them together. 3, 2, 1. Fire." Hundreds of energy beams struck the massive Devourer ship at once. For a moment, nothing happened. Then cracks appeared in its dark hull, spreading like spider webs. The huge ship exploded, the blast taking out several smaller Devourer vessels nearby. The remaining dark ships began to retreat, something no one had ever seen their main fleet do before. But victory came with a price. A quarter of the Alliance fleet was destroyed or badly damaged. The Council capital's defenses were in ruins, and several of its crystal cities lay broken. "Council emergency broadcast," Lisa reported. "Similar attacks are happening across Council space. The Devourers are hitting everywhere at once." "They were waiting," Swift said from his runner ship. "Waiting for the Council to grow weak enough. Waiting for the barriers to fail." Robert looked at the tactical display showing attacks across the galaxy. "This isn't over," he said. "That was just their first wave. They'll be back, and in greater numbers." "Message from Earth," Lisa announced. "The barrier, it's completely down. And they've been building ships, lots of them. They want to join the fight." Robert smiled for the first time that day. "Tell them to prepare for our arrival. It's time to bring humanity into the Alliance properly." He turned to his crew. "The Council tried to contain warrior species because they were afraid of us. But the galaxy doesn't need containment now. It needs warriors." As the Phoenix headed toward Earth, Robert watched the Alliance fleet regroup. The Council had feared their differences, but those differences had just saved their capital. Now they needed to prepare for the real war, one that would determine the fate of every species in the galaxy. 3 months after the first major battle, Earth's orbital shipyards buzzed with activity. Hundreds of new ships were under construction, built with a combination of human ingenuity and alien technology. The Alliance fleet had doubled in size, with Earth serving as its new headquarters. Robert stood in the Phoenix's upgraded bridge, looking at reports from across the galaxy. The Devourers had gone quiet after their first wave of attacks, but everyone knew they were gathering strength for something bigger. "Scout ships reporting in," Lisa announced. They found the Devourers' main fleet, over 5,000 ships, gathering at the edge of known space. "Show me," Robert ordered. The tactical display lit up, showing the massive dark fleet. But something was different about these ships. "Energy readings are off the scale," Paul reported. "They've adapted to our weapons. They're stronger now." Mary pointed to new data coming in. Look at this. The Council's central worlds are evacuating. They're running away. But we're not, Robert said firmly. He opened a channel to the entire Alliance fleet. This is the moment we've trained for. Every species here brings something unique to this fight. The Council thought that made us dangerous. They were right, but not to the galaxy, to its enemies. The Alliance fleet gathered near Jupiter. 3,000 ships of all shapes and sizes. Earth's new vessels joined runner scouts, builder technology ships, and Ridge Warrior battleships. The Shade Dancers added their stealth expertise, while the High Guard brought their energy mastery. Devourer fleet is moving, Lisa reported. They're heading straight for Earth. Good, Robert said, because we've got one last surprise for them. He turned to Paul. Start the broadcast. Across every channel, in every language, the Phoenix began transmitting the truth they'd discovered in the Council's files. The Devourers weren't invincible. They were the last survivors of a species that had tried to rule the galaxy long ago. They'd been defeated once by an alliance of warrior species that the Council had later contained. They don't feed on energy, Robert explained to the fleet. They feed on fear, on surrender, on the weakness the Council created with their false peace. The Devourer fleet emerged from FTL near Mars. Their ships had grown larger, darker, their hulls wrapped in crackling purple energy. All ships, battle formation, Robert ordered. Remember your training. Fight together. Fight smart. The battle began. Runner ships darted through the Devourer lines, protected by High Guard energy shields. Builder vessels channeled power to Ridge Warrior weapons, while Shade Dancers struck from seemingly nowhere. Earth's new ships moved in perfect coordination with their allies, using tactics developed over months of training. For every ship the Alliance lost, they destroyed 3 Devourer vessels. But the Devourers kept coming. Their massive flagship, larger than any ship ever seen, pushed through the Alliance lines, heading straight for Earth. All ships, fall back to Earth orbit, Robert commanded. Execute final plan. As the Devourer flagship approached Earth, something unexpected happened. The planet's surface lit up. Hidden energy collectors, built by humans and powered by builder technology, activated all at once. Now, Robert ordered. Every Alliance ship fired at the collectors. The energy bounced between them, forming a web around Earth. The Devourer flagship flew straight into it. For a moment, the massive ship hung suspended in the energy web. Then the dark hull cracked, power pouring out. The mighty vessel broke apart, its destruction sending a shockwave through the Devourer fleet. Without their flagship, the remaining Devourer ships lost formation. The Alliance fleet pressed their advantage, working together to eliminate the threat that had terrorized the galaxy for so long. Hours later, it was over. The stars shone again, no longer hidden by dark ships. Message from the Council, Lisa said. They're abolishing the containment policy. All barriers are coming down. Robert looked at his crew, then at the Alliance fleet surrounding Earth. The galaxy didn't need protection from warrior species, he said. It needed warriors to protect it. The Phoenix turned toward Earth, leading the fleet home. Humanity had been exiled for being warriors, but that same warrior spirit had just saved the galaxy. And this time, they would build a peace worth protecting.